there has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michelle Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 210. Back to school, back to veg your best. Okay, we are back in the swing of what I think is the real new year, right? You know, I sometimes call this the other new year, but I think September really is the new year. I don't know. What do you think? Even if you aren't a student, even if you don't have kids and don't have summer vacation, September for most of us means some sort of reorganization or reentry, as the French say. And that universality of September, meaning you're back at it, whatever that it is for you, that back at it feeling, I think it's a reminder that we are part of a culture that is organized around this time of year. You know, you'd have to go a long way out and way off the grid to get away from all the back to school and sweater weather memes. And so if my DMs and my emails mean anything, some of you are saying that you want to get back at it, whatever that is for you. And in terms of the people who tune in and listen here, typically it's getting back at some aspect of their vegan or plant-based practice. And just so you know, my Veg Your Bestie, just so everybody knows, you never, ever have to apologize to me if you have been eating animals or buying leather or down. You know, I am not here to correct you or to stand in judgment. Never. Never. I'm here to cheer you on and encourage you. I'm here to share some ideas and some people and some distinctions, some mental constructs, hopefully to support you as you practice, as you choose to limit and eliminate the consumption of animal products. Because just as we have a culture that's strongly organized around a back-to-school academic new year, even if we aren't at all involved in school, we also live in a culture that is strongly organized around the consumption of animal products through subsidies and intensive industrial animal facilities that make meat and dairy and leather much less expensive than we could ever have historically believed. This is just the world we're in. So I think it's the world we are obligated to function in and to show up in. And that goes for me too. And I get that parts of this practice of becoming conscious of all the choices we don't really want to be part of, but because they are so normalized, they're so ingrained in our homes, in our families, in our traditions and workplaces, it can seem, as one of my listeners said recently, like a bit of a marathon. And I laughed when I responded back to her in an email, not to discourage you, but it's actually more like back-to-back marathons for the foreseeable future, but in a good way. In a good way, because it opens up your life. Really. It opens up your life. And at first you may be thinking that this practice is about narrowing or limiting your life as you choose to increasingly opt out of animal products? Because at first, that is how most of us go about it, thinking about what we can't eat or can't buy. You know, some of us get very touchy about that term can't, right? Because of course we can. We aren't allergic. We are choosing to the best of our abilities not to buy and not to consume animals. It is this practice of choosing, exercising your choice, exercising your authority and your agency to the best of your ability. That is the most life-changing part of this process. Now, do I think there can be health benefits to a vegan and plant-based lifestyle? Yes. Yes, researchers, health professionals, smarter folks than I will ever be have written extensively about it, some of them on this very podcast. And I believe a vibrant life can be fueled particularly with a whole food plant-based diet. But what changed my life and what I see change so many lives are the cascading benefits to human beings who have practiced exercising their choice, who exercise their authority and their agency in this very compassionate practice of opting out of consuming animals. And you know what? They do it without moving to an ashram. They do it without waiting for everyone they live with to get on board. They do it without getting by getting any approval from family. They do it without getting their coworkers on board with it. They do it in restaurants without helpful waitstaff sometimes, and they do it traveling around the world. They just decide that they don't want to be part of industrial animal agriculture. They don't want to pay people to torture animals, and they look for the ways where they can opt out. And just like school, there is a voice in this culture that will tell you, that will say that if you aren't perfect at it, that you're a hypocrite and that you're delusional and that you're stepping on insects, right? And carrots are alive and farming disrupts animals too. And what about that leather recliner in front of your TV and the medicine you give your child? That was tested on animals. Okay, those are mostly taken from recent trolling comments on my YouTube channel. Did you know I had a YouTube channel? Anyway, the YouTube channel is just another place where you can access the podcast, same as the ones on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Overcast. Just a Wild West, though, on YouTube in terms of the trolling comments. So yes, there is that voice that tells you you're doing it wrong and that you are crazy. But yes, I agree. There's no perfect vegan, no perfect anything, because we're living in a non-vegan world, and I still want to live here with the rest of you. But especially when we're learning and leaning into this way of living, it's as predictable as back to school that you will hear that voice, sometimes from a mean-spirited troll, sometimes from an honestly mystified coworker, and sometimes from that voice in our own head that we've been indoctrinated with that says, you're confused, can't be done. This is crazy at your age. Don't expect me to support you. You ate an awful lot of meat for an awful lot of years, sweetie. I get it. And that's why I think it is one of the most life-changing things you can do, perfect or not. Especially if you are not in the first flush of youth, especially if you, like I, spent years, decades not thinking about it, not being conscious about it, not making the connection because it was normal. It was normal to eat animals. I see it time and time again how the practice, just the practice, the beginning of the practice of limiting or eliminating the consumption of animals on a daily basis, exercising this choice even imperfectly strengthens all our choice muscles. All of them. Just like back to school, we've been socialized to go along to get along. Go along to get along. And it seems like a vegan practice will mean not going along, and so not getting along. But when you find out that you can veg your best and not blow up your life and relationships, that's life-changing. And that, my Veg Your Bestie, is why I'm here every week. And if you're a level 5 vegan, I want to encourage you also. Encourage the people around you who simply can't imagine being as fluent in veganism as you are right now. Their choice muscles in this area are just not as practiced. Now, I don't know if I've ever told this story. I talk about my parents once in a while here. My dad was a psychiatrist, but in medical school, he loved his rotation in surgery. He always talked about how the best way of teaching was the Halsted model of teaching surgery. Halsted's students, when he developed this method, would begin training by watching surgical techniques performed and then would gain a model for their own actions. Then, following this memorized model, the students would attempt to perform the actions themselves, aided by some constructive critique as they progressed. And this model was typically referred to as see one, do one, teach one. See one, do one, teach one. So this back to school season, I want to suggest that this is a good model for us to have in the back of our minds. If you are a vegan already, people need to see you. They need to see you out there veganing. And encourage people to do a vegan meal, do make a vegan choice, even if it's a once in a while thing. And if you are new to this, my Veg Your Bestie, or if you have not been practicing for a while, thank you for showing up here. Thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. No criticism. None. Thanks for being here. I'd like to encourage you to get back in the loop by maybe seeing where you can consume some vegan or plant-based content. You know, I have over 200 episodes in my back catalog, and if you want recommendations, you have but to ask. You have but to ask. It would be my honor to share some ideas with you, depending on your interests and concerns. I can point you in a lot of great directions. So see one, do one. Do make one plant-based or vegan choice at the next opportunity. And after a few, maybe teach one. Tell someone a discovery that you've made, something you learned, or share a delicious plant-based food that you tried. See one, do one, teach one. That's my back to school model, my back to school, back to Veg Your Best recommendation for September 2024. See one, do one, teach one. That's the Halsted method. If it works for surgery, I think you're going to see it works as you veg your best. Veg Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Veg Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.